closer and closer to landfall. What are we thinking as far as the timing and when or whether this will be upgraded to a hurricane?
Hurricane status likely by the end of today, even this afternoon it's possible. It's still kind of meandering close to the Mexico border there, so until it gets back out into open water, it'll continue to stay as a tropical storm. But what this means for us, the timeline back home is Thursday into Friday and not wrapping up shop until Sunday. It'll be a big impact down near the coast along the Louisiana coast, for example, but that's going to be tomorrow. We get it the day after. What it means is the possibility of severe weather on Thursday and Friday. Spin up tornado can't even be ruled out both of those days. We've not talked severe weather in quite a while here. Bringing much needed rainfall, though. If we can keep the rain to come in waves and not dump on us the entire time, all that rain at once, 3 inches of rainfall could help us out a little bit with our drought. But here's what I mean. We have kind of like two portions of this right around the main circulation. So when this pulls away and into the Gulf, that's when it becomes a Category 1 later today. Could even be a Category 2 by the time it makes landfall. Here's late Wednesday, continuing north toward Nashville, all the way up through Thursday into Friday. Weakening when it comes to wind, but still plenty of rain to work with. That'll be the main emphasis here when you get into your Saturday and Sunday. In the general, you can actually track hurricanes on the Fox 17 Code Red Weather app. Yeah, you can go down to the tropics and get the same little cones and tracks that we get just like that. You open the app, you just click on the little icon, the little menu icon, overlays, tropic tracks. When this starts getting closer, if you want to see when you're on the go and where it's at, you can track right along with us at home.
Let's talk about steer clear traffic this morning. Let's get you to I-40 at Fessler's Lane. This is just east of downtown. You can see the traffic crawling in there from this east side. This is what it's going to be out there today, everybody. A lot of congestion out there as all of your friends and neighbors get on the road around the same time. And it's causing some big slowdowns. Let me show it to you here on your drive times. Coming down from Clarksville, 71 minutes as you make that drive down, not just from Clarksville, but Pleasant View, Jolton, Whites Creek, a bit slow as you get closer to the city. We've been dealing with this problem on I-24 all morning, and there's no accident to show you. There's no big spot where it's happening. It's just slow. An hour and 25 minutes right now from Murfreesboro into downtown, 55 minutes in from Hendersonville.
We are covering some more breaking news right now out of Clarksville. Take a look here at this map, giving you some more perspective. A shooting investigation is now underway in this area.
Yeah, police tell Fox 17 News they found a victim in the Ash Ridge Drive area. This is just north of Purple Heart Parkway. So far, police have not released any information about who they might be looking for or what led up to this shooting. And I realize we don't have many details right now, but we're working to get those for you. And just as soon as they come in, we'll bring them to you live through 9.
And we are covering some more developing news about a Sky Bar arrest. Metro Police say a man is now in custody charged in connection with last Monday's shooting outside of this bar in Antioch. Deshaun Davenport, right here on your screen, was arrested last night. Police say Davenport opened fire in the parking lot of Sky Barn Lounge on Hamilton Crossings Boulevard, hurting at least 5 people.
Yeah, police say they were able to identify him using this surveillance video. This is what we showed you last week. Remember, we were pointing out the really long dreads here. We also have learned that Davenport had prior convictions and was also convicted of misdemeanor running from police in May. Davenport now faces 11 counts, including 5 counts of attempted homicide.
New this Tuesday, we now know the name of the man who police say was found Sunday afternoon in the Cumberland River. 59-year-old James Taylor, according to police, was fishing with his sister near Baptist World Center Drive on Friday.
Right. His sister apparently left to go get some food and says Taylor was gone when she came back. A boater found his body in the river Sunday. We understand an autopsy is pending right now.
Happening today, the parents of missing teenager Sebastian Rogers, 15 years old, they are going to be appearing in a courtroom in Sumner County. This is all to do with a restraining order against a woman who says she is helping with ongoing search efforts.
Right. So many developments in this case the last week or so, but none of them related to the search for Sebastian Rogers. So the parents have accused Andrea Griffin of violating an order of protection. Griffin is known to a lot of people online as BullHorn Betty. She's a true crime volunteer who has been heavily involved in the search for Sebastian. Sebastian's parents say that she is too involved. Griffin claims she was always on public property, says her First Amendment rights are now being violated. So they're expected to show up at 10 o'clock this morning at court there in Sumner County. We'll be there. We'll let you know what's decided.
Just about 8:05, and do me a favor right now in Operation Crime and Justice, take a look at the man right behind us here. Okay, this person now added to TBI's most wanted list. 46-year-old Michael Van Dobbs is wanted for criminal homicide out of Murray County. He's about 6 feet tall, weighs about 240 pounds, has blue eyes, and is considered to be armed and dangerous.
There is a reward right now, about $2,500, if you have any information that leads to an arrest. You can call the number right there on your screen with any information.
Continuing coverage this Tuesday morning on the push to make downtown Nashville a safer place. This comes after the death of Riley Strain, who fell into the river and then his body was discovered.
Right, and after that happened, another woman fell down the banks of the Cumberland River right there along First Street. She thankfully was found alive, but those two scenarios have prompted a lot of folks to call for barriers to keep people safe. So Fox 17 News reporter Madeline Nolan joining us live on Gay Street right now, where we understand some temporary barriers have gone up just before the weekend.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've been following this story for quite some time, and it was only recently when they decided to go ahead and put up these barriers. But with that being said, officials do say that this is the most dangerous spot. But if I do bring you guys over here, I do want to point out that they aren't that sturdy. And this is because they are pretty temporary. Officials say that they will put in more permanent structures later on, but this is only to encourage safety, especially for the big weekend ahead. Now, Councilperson Jacob Coupin says that once Riley Strain was ultimately found dead in the Cumberland River, he accelerated these safety efforts in downtown. Now, he says while the temporary fencing is in place, they are looking at ways to keep it safe more permanently without blocking ways for people to safely get into the river.
I don't know exactly what that timeline looks like. But again, hopefully they at least encourage safety and make it so someone doesn't inadvertently step over the edge or step into a dangerous area. And then long term, as we evaluate this, we're hoping to put more temporary options there.
Coupin says that it is a multi-pronged approach, pointing out the permanent residency with Red Frogs every Friday night, and then also NCVC's Push Pause program to encourage people not to get too drunk. Now, when we were out here yesterday, we actually spoke to some tourists who were walking down here and noticed these barriers. They have a few opinions of their own that they did share with me, and we will have that coming up in the next half hour. For now, live here in Nashville, Madeline Nolan, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Madeline, thank you so much. Coming up, folks in Mount Juliet are pushing back against a new development that could bring dozens of new homes to that city.
All right, we're going to tell you why some people feel like this project is just not the right fit for that area.
And street vendors in the Gulch and the hot seat, why they have businesses and folks who live nearby butting heads.
Coming up on 8:10 here on this Tuesday morning, one developer in Mount Juliet wants to put 64 homes and some retail space on 22 acres there in the city. It would be called the Elliott Reserve. Now, the people who don't want this project says it has a little bit too much of, well, everything. Too much traffic, too much blasting in the city. One city leader says he wants to hear more details, though, before making a final vote.
I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert engineer. I'm not a specialist in stormwater. I'm not a specialist in seismographs or blasting. I try to base my decisions based on facts and not gut feelings. I think that's the only way we can really go about it. When we're talking about emergency service vehicles not being able to go up a road, I'd like to hear from our fire chief to see if that's actually the case.
Now, those against this also say the long construction project to build one of these increases the flooding. They say that the developer always makes promises to make a way so that the flooding will not happen, but it takes years before it actually happens. Plus, the project oftentimes gets hung up because of funding. What's happening right now, there's a growing pressure out there to put more restrictions on street vendors in the Gulch. Metro Council member Jacob Coupin, who represents downtown, says that he's heard from several business area districts down there, along with the residents. The street vendors have caused a lot of walkability issues and safety issues there in the Gulch. Many of the business leaders are denying that particular claim. In the meantime, other business leaders say they are trying to support an updated no vending zone map. It would ban vendors from putting up their stands in the Gulch. The Nashville Department of Transportation says they will be showing the updated map. They will also do a mass mail out and ask people to vote on the possible expansion. Happening today, the first presidential debate between the Vice President Kamala Harris and the former President Donald Trump will be taking place in Philadelphia. Now, you can watch that debate right here on Fox 17. Our coverage begins at 7 p.m. The actual debate begins at 8 o'clock tonight.
Coming up in the forecast, you're waking up to blue sky and a temperature near 90. Nothing happening for now, but we are in a code red weather alert. The end of this week, severe weather, heavy rainfall. I'm tracking it for you.
Steer clear traffic, a bit of a slow go at I-65 as you make your way down towards Dickerson Pike. We're going to tell you the best way to deal with this.
Plus, at the Grand Ole Opry tonight, it's World Suicide Prevention Day. After the break, we're hearing from the Guitars for Vets on the message this year and the significance of the event.
8:14, welcome back. We are in a code red weather alert for this upcoming weekend. We're finally getting a good picture here on our first real look as this moves into our U.S. radars here down toward the south of what is now starting to form of the eye here of Tropical Storm Francine. So what this means when it moves to the north and east back into all this open water, it will continue.
It is so unfortunate. Professionals, computer forensic analysts, investigators, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. When these groups join together, they succeed. Their project yielded such important results, and we saw that that collaboration was not only effective, it absolutely identified victims, helped protect children, and is what we need to model for our future allocation of resources. And so we are here today to support legislation that would ensure that Homeland Security investigators have the resources and the personnel they need with the appropriate expertise, and that their partnership with NCMEC and other state and local law enforcement agencies and the FBI can be an effective tool in meeting this increased need, this increased demand, so that we stay ahead of these offenders. It is no accident that today's bill is bipartisan and bicameral. This is something that we all agree on and that we all support. I want to particularly thank Tim Tebow and the Tebow Foundation for shining a light on this incredibly important work. These children that we are here today to advocate for are the voiceless and the vulnerable. And together, the Tebow Foundation and the members here are committed to ensuring that we give them that voice and that we provide the men and women of law enforcement the resources and the tools that they need to stop predators and to protect our children.
Thank you so much. I'm Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'm also vertically challenged. I want to thank my colleagues, both senators and Congresswoman Lee, as well as Tim Tebow. What you're seeing in front of you is a reconstitution of a team that has come together on both sides of the aisle, on both sides of the Capitol, repeatedly over the last nearly 20 years. I'm proud to be the original author of the Protect Our Children Act, which was legislation where we finally were able to make sure that we put a process in place and ended the siloed nature of how investigations are conducted across the federal government. We put the experts from interagency task forces around the table. We codified the Internet Crimes Against Children task forces into law, and we made sure that they were able to get funded and not have their funding be subject to the whims of politics. We know that there are hundreds of thousands of images across the internet embedded deep in the dark web. And these are not what is commonly known as child pornography in the sense of the word that is normally meant. These are crime scene photos. Every single one of these photos represents and depicts real children who are being horrifically abused. And over the years, we've been able to, Senator Cornyn and I have been able to reauthorize different versions of the Protect Our Children Act and keep it in law, make sure we provided resources to it, and ensure that we even funded the original group of heroes who were retired military, who were veterans, who were trained in forensic investigations to make sure that we had specialists who were on the front lines investigating these horrific criminal acts, and then had used those tools to be able to go after and find these perpetrators. The Renewed Hope Act is going to allow us to put in more resources because this does require bodies. It requires brains. It requires human beings, and we have to fortify our front line of investigators who literally are the first line of defense between the perpetrators and whether a child who is being victimized and abused by a perpetrator is rescued or not. We don't have anywhere near the percentage of rescues that we could because we really aren't putting enough resources or personnel on the battlefield. And having Tim Tebow here, who I've known for many years, all the way back to when he was in college, and the platform that the Tim Tebow Foundation represents, to add his celebrity, to add his clout, and to add his remarkable empathy is so incredibly important. So we're going to get this done because every time this team comes together, we're able to get this done. Our job has quite literally been
Order of protection. The order of protection speaks for itself. It's pretty plain in its language, but it covers what it doesn't cover. Mr. Frizzell, you had, in full disclosure, I met with counsel for Ms. Griffin for the state of Tennessee and for the Bowersox and Ms. Proudfoot in chambers before coming out. The parties have asked this court to set this matter to a hearing date separately than from today. You know, in my consideration, I will grant this continuance, but it's only going to be for a short period of time because we have order of protections involved. These order of protections that are filed are in effect, as the court sees them, they're in effect currently as except to Mr. Proudfoot's, which is an ex parte, and it remains in effect as an ex parte until we have a hearing on all of these matters at the same time. Council will get their calendars out. Mr. Moore, are you going to represent, you and Mr. Kowski going to represent the Bowersox and the Proudfoots, or just one party?
Your Honor, I believe we can do both because it does seem to be the same.
You're going to represent all four parties then? There's four different orders of protection. There's one that's been granted for Terry Bowersox, Senior, Maddie Bowersox, Katie Proudfoot. The only one that has not been heard yet is Christopher A. Proudfoot, and that was set, and I'll set that for a hearing on the same day that we take all these up at the same time.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe it was our agreement with the Proudfoots. We represent Katie Proudfoot and Christopher Proudfoot. We can certainly talk to them about potentially representing the Bowersox if they need representation, but as it stands right now,
Okay.
it's the Proudfoots.
I just want to make sure that's clear for the record of who your clients are.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I don't want to address you in matters regarding the Bowersox if you're not representing them. council if you'll check your calendars for October the 10th.
I'm open, Your Honor.
State?
Judge, I may potentially be at a jury trial that day, but if not, I can.
I'm going to set it for the 10th. Mr. Moore, are you available that day?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to set this matter, I have orders protection that morning set on my civil docket that morning anyhow. What I'll do is tentatively set this for 11 o'clock on October the 10th. And we'll address all the issues that are outstanding in this matter. Ms. Griffin, until then, the order of protections as it relates to Mr. Bowersox, Ms. Bowersox, and Ms. Proudfoot are in effect and the ex parte order is in effect as it relates to Mr. Proudfoot. The difference is the penalties, if you violate those, are different for one having been ordered and one that is an ex parte. Those are the differences between those. Any other matters we need to take up, counsel? From the state?
Yes.
All right.
Your Honor, we would simply ask that the copy of the statute we provided to the court be entered into the record.
If you're going to file any, are you anticipating filing any other matters? Just include that with what you're going to file. That way it's in the record. What you provide me back in chambers is not adequate.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Attached back into this file. So
Thank you.
Do that. Anything, Mr. Moore, if you intend to file anything in the state, I would ask that you all, if you have any motions that you're going to file, please have them filed by Monday, September 30th at noon.
Yes, Your Honor.
And if you'll also include that in that order, Mr. Frizzell, for the court signature, and make sure that all the parties are served. That'll be your order of the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. The date again in September for the motions to be filed.
September 30th, Monday, September 30th at 9 o'clock for the motions. And then we'll have a hearing beginning at 11, as close as possible, beginning at 11. It depends on how the morning goes with the order of protections that morning, how many I have and how many hearings we have on those.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
May we be excused, Your Honor.
High winds could pose threats to both property and to life. Expect heavy rain and flash flooding in coastal regions from Houston to Beaumont, also expanding all the way up into northeast Texas. Be prepared for storm surge of about 1 to 3 feet. Watch out in particular for rip currents. Those are the kinds of things that people typically cannot see, but they can turn deadly very swiftly. As well as one thing that a storm like this can spawn would be potential tornadoes. Now, we all know that the current predicted pathway of the storm continues to edge more toward Louisiana. Even though that's the case, these heavy rains, as well as the tornadoes that could come from the storm, still are a possibility, especially in the north and northeast part of the Texas Gulf Coast. Probable tropical force winds in southeast Texas, especially along the coast, a possibility of winds as much as 30 to 35 miles per hour. Tropical storm Francine is expected to continue to get more predictable as we go through the course of this day. And as I mentioned, it looks like the most likely area of landfall will be in Louisiana. And when it makes landfall, it is expected to be at least a Category 1 hurricane. That said, one thing that we've learned is that the predicted pathway of a storm like this doesn't always turn out to be true. As a result, we need to be prepared for the possibility that conditions could change, that could cause the storm to move a little bit further to the west with increased danger to parts of Texas. As we all remember, Beryl took an unexpected pathway. We must be prepared for Francine to also lead to unpredictable pathways as it gets closer to the shore. Everyone along the Texas coast should remain vigilant and tuned into this until the storm passes their particular area. Along those lines, what people should do is to listen carefully to their local news as well as their local officials who will know best about what is happening in their particular area. The most important thing that we are focused on is protecting the life of every Texan. To do that, again, listen to your local officials and take action to avoid high water on roads and be aware of storm surge. One thing that it seems that we see every time a storm passes through Texas is that some Texans will drive through a roadway unaware of the depth of the water in that region. They get stuck because the water is higher and moving more swiftly than the driver expects. It leads to emergency rescue operations, or at worst, can lead to a possible death. There's a simple slogan that people need to remember, and that is, turn around, don't drown. You don't need to get through that particular roadway if there's heavy or high water in that area. Be safe with your own life, knowing that you can control your own safety by making a decision about where you do and where you do not drive. Power, I know, is a concern of Texans, especially those along the coastline. We expect power providers to be prepared for this storm. Storms like this occur every year on the Texas coastline. There is absolutely no reason for power providers to be fully prepared to meet demands of this storm. We know that even with the greatest preparation, winds can sometimes cause power lines to fall to the ground. When that happens, we fully expect power companies to be prepared in advance to restore those power lines in a matter of hours, not in a matter of days. The Texas response has already been robust. We have pre-stage response resources in advance all the way from Brownsville over to Beaumont. We've coordinated with local officials across the Gulf Coast. We have water rescue teams.
And literally not doing it with one hand behind our back because we don't have enough people. We need human beings on the ground, making sure, actually in front of the computer screens with the training necessary to do the forensic investigations in spite of our lack of progress.
Big tech ought to support this bill.
Yes, that's
We
right.
can't let, you know,